Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. So today I am going to read a few more chapters of Cara the Class Clown by Lydia de Giulio, Bridget de Giulio. I hope you enjoy it. Chapter 23, The Prickly Encounter. Emerging from her hiding place, underneath a pile of leaves, Cara scuttled towards a lush green leafy plant in full blossom. The plant was covered with pretty pink and yellow bell-shaped flowers which gently swayed back and forth in the breeze, attracting an endless supply of beautiful multicoloured butterflies and noisy buzzing bees that were busy collecting nectar from their leaves, from their hives. "That was close," said Cara to herself. "I thought that boy was coming to feed me to those pigeons for their morning snack. Luckily, he let me go, but at least I'm safe out here," she reassured herself, sighing. Crawling onto the stem of the flowering plant, Cara's heart suddenly began to pound in fright when she felt something prickly touching her back. "Ouch!" yelped Cara as she turned around to see a large green praying mantis wiping at her with its claw. Cara hadn't noticed the mantis before now, as it was camouflaged on a leaf of the plant. The praying mantis tilted its triangular head and stared at her with its beady eyes. Cara screamed and jumped out of its grasp. Just in time. But the mantis chased Cara as it got closer, its paws went snap, snap, snap at her. Unfortunately, it kept missing since Cara was simply too fast for it. Cara scuttled away as quickly as she could and crawled underneath a stone to hide, trembling. She began to cry and sobbed. "I want to go home. I want to be with my mother and dad. If only I'd listened to them. In the first place, none of this would ever happen. I'm too little to be out on my own." But just at that moment, Cara heard a loud voice in the distance. She froze in fright. "What's your name?" asked the voice. Turned around to see where the noise was coming from. Cara spotted a cockroach nearby. It answered, "My name is Cara, and what is your name?" Scrambling down the brick wall of the vegetable garden, the stranger approached and said, "Hi, I'm Chandra. Welcome to Pestville." Thank you, replied Cara, wiping away her tears. "Is everyone around here as friendly as you are?" she asked. "Pretty much," answered Chandra, nodding. "Oh, except for Candice," she added, pulling a face. "Who's Candice?" asked Cara curiously. "She's a little cockroach in my class at school. Candice likes to play tricks on all of us constantly. No one likes her, and she doesn't have any friends. Not even one," remarked Chandra. "Oh, I see," replied Cara, blushing, ashamed of the practical jokes that she used to play on her classmates at school. "What, have you been crying?" asked Chandra, noticing that Cara's eyes were all red and puffy. "Oh well, sort of," replied Cara, feeling a little embarrassed again. Why? What's wrong? Asked Chanda. It's a long story, replied Cara, who was not really in the mood to talk about it. Okay, said Chanda, not wanting to pry any further. Let's talk about something else, then. Cara hesitated for a moment before beginning to speak. Well, actually, I can tell you one thing, though. I'm totally lost, and I have no idea how I'm ever going to find my way home again, she said sadly. I'm really sorry to hear that, Cara, but why don't you come with me for now, and I'll introduce you to everyone, urged Chandra. Kindly, he was trying her best to cheer her up. Cara nodded, already beginning to feel more cheerful as they set off round the entire garden. Chapter 24. Candice! It wasn't long before Cara was able to work out exactly who Chanda was talking about. Watching from a distance, Cara overheard Candice talking to her parents. I don't want to apologise to Mr. Clarity, said Candice. Why should I? You should apologise to him, because you tied his and Tina together when he was taking a nap. That's why, yelled Candice's mother. But Mrs. Clarity managed to untie them in the end. In the end, anyway, replied Candice, smirking. Well, yes, but that's not the point. Candice, you should never have made such a poor choice in the first place. Mrs. Clarity felt awful when she accidentally broke Mr. Clarity's left antenna while she was untying it. And now he looks terrible. With only half an antenna. Mr. Clarity is still quite upset about the incident. You know, but it's all your fault, Candice, screamed her mother, glaring furiously at her. But Candice only giggled and replied, well, I did that because I don't like staying with them whilst you're away scavenging. Mr. and Mrs. Claret are so boring. I had to entertain myself somehow. Candice, that's not a very nice thing to say, snapped her mother. I'd like you to march over to Mr. and Mrs. Claret's house this very minute and apologise to poor Mr. Claret. Have I made myself clear? No, you haven't. I won't go, Mother. You can't make me go over there. I am not going to their house ever again, yelled Candice in defiance. Candice's parents just stood there, staring at each other in disbelief at their daughter's very public display of disobedience. Candice's mother was so embarrassed by her daughter's disgraceful behaviour that she was unwittingly twirling one of her antenna in circles, and in doing so, it accidentally snapped a large piece of her antenna off as it broke and fell to the ground. Screaming at Candice, she said, "Now look what you've done!" But Candice only giggled and squealed. "Oh, Mother, it's not my fault. I didn't break your antenna. You did. You look hilarious with a broken antenna. I love it," glaring at Candace. Her mother said, "I am so ashamed of you. Will you stop embarrassing me?" Smiling sweetly at her mother, Candace promptly replied, "Never!" Just then, Candace's mother noticed Cara hiding behind some bushes. She suddenly became even more embarrassed when she realised that Cara had been watching and listening from a distance. The whole time, she gave Cara a slight smile. Cara felt so sorry for Candace's mother. The incident that Cara had just witnessed had played a significant role in helping her to realise just how unkind and inappropriate it was to play practical jokes on others. No wonder my parents wanted to send me to boarding school. They would never have considered sending me away if I'd been good, she thought regretfully. "Cara, let's go and play!" Chandra called out, interrupting Cara from her thoughts. All right, but only if Candace can play too," replied Cara. Chandra stared at her in shock. "Candace!" she uttered in surprise. "Yes!" replied Cara. "I'd really like to meet her. Will you introduce me to her?" "Chandra, please," she begged. "You're very brave," exclaimed Chandra. "But if you really want me to, I guess I could." Candace poked her tongue out at the girls as they approached. "Are you sure that you'd still like to meet her?" whispered Chandra, hoping that Cara had changed her mind. "Yes, positive," replied Cara. Chapter 25, The Prank. "This is my new friend, Cara," said Chandra nervously. "She has asked me to introduce you to her." "Go away, Chandra, and take your little friend with you," replied Candace, frowning at them. "Oh, all right, if you say so." "I will gladly," retorted Chandra, turning to go. "Cara, are you coming?" demanded Chandra. "No, I'll meet up with you later, but thanks," replied Cara, smiling at her. Looking puzzled, Chandra stared at Cara in disbelief. I think I can help Candace make some new friends," whispered Cara. "Okay, but please be careful around her," warned Chandra. "Remember, she loves nothing more than to play pranks on everyone that she meets." "Don't worry," replied Cara. "I'll be fine. I can take care of myself," she added as Chandra scuttled away, out of sight. Cara turned to face Candace and said, "Why don't we go for a walk?" "No, I don't want to," replied Candace. But Cara only laughed, not at all intimidated by her lack of friendliness. Come on with me," urged Cara. "It would be great if we can be friends." Suddenly, Candace changed her mind and wore a huge grin on her face. "All right, Cara, let's go then," said Candace with a gleam in her eye. That was easy, thought Cara. Maybe she's not as bad as everyone makes her out to be. I'm sure that we'll be friends, good friends soon. Follow me, said Candace. I want to show you something. Cara had to run to keep up with her. Candace led her to a large glass house that was tucked away at the back of the garden. Let's climb up here. It'll be really fun, Cara. And when you reach the top of the glass house, you can see a really, really nice view of the area, exclaimed Candace, wearing a slight grin on her face. But it's so high up, said Cara, but it looks so slippery. Oh, go on, you can do it. I've done it heaps of times myself, said Candace, who was blatantly lying. You go first. Rationalising the situation and going ahead, her instincts and better judgment. Cara nodded reluctantly. Well, maybe I should try to climb to the top of the glass house, Cara thought to herself. Then Candace will really like me and want to be my friend. And I'll be able to work out exactly where I am so that I can find my way home again. Looking upwards and taking a deep breath, Cara said anxiously, Here I go, Candace. Wish me luck, as she started to climb her way up the slippery glass wall. Chapter 26. Stuck. Cara was actually doing quite well until she suddenly lost her grip and fell down, landing on her back. She began to panic and cried, Help! Please help! Candace, I'm stuck! But instead of quickly coming to her aid, Candace couldn't stop giggling and said, Cara, you look so funny upside down on your back. She was laughing so hard that tears were rolling down her cheeks. Candace, this is not funny. Please help me, begged Cara. I am really, really stuck. I really am stuck. As if I care, replied Candace coldly, as she turned her back on Cara, chuckling to herself while scuttling away, and without even giving Cara a second glance, she remarked, You'll be right, Cara. Thanks. I really needed a good laugh. Maybe I'll see you later. But then maybe not. Cara began to panic, and her eyes reflected the fear and feeling of disbelief that had suddenly overshadowed her. Cara was totally alone with nobody in sight who could possibly help her, and not a sound was to be heard anywhere. Regardless, she desperately cried out for help, but it was no use. There was no one around to hear her. Cara was left stuck upside down on her back, frightened and helpless. She began to cry. What am I going to do now? She sobbed. I just can't seem to turn myself over. But back onto my tummy. Cara was kicking her legs around frantically in the air when suddenly she heard a loud squawking sound echoing through the sky, seemingly out of nowhere. A huge black crow appeared, swooping down at her. Cara felt a sudden sharp pain in her wings as the crow picked her up in its beak and lifted her off the ground. Cara shrieked, She was terrified and began to sob uncontrollably. The crow soared through the air whilst on its way to its nest, which could not be seen high up at the top of an enormous tree. Cara panicked, knowing that it was planning on feeding her to its chicks. "That's it! I'm finished! This is the end of me!" she sobbed. "How am I ever going to escape from here?" The end. Poor Cara, I feel sorry for her now. And I wonder whether she'll manage to escape from what is laying ahead of her. Will the crow release her? Will she be reunited with her family? Will she become a better friend and student? Should you wish to find out, please purchase this book and enjoy the last 25 pages, where all the above will be disclosed. Lots of love. Enjoy reading with me!